You're hiding backstage, watching hundreds of guests gathered to witness your perfect day. They have no idea the show they've come for is nothing like what they expect. In your hand, a flash drive. Inside it lies the truth, sharp enough to tear this gilded illusion to pieces. You could simply walk away, leave them all basking in their blissful ignorance. But you chose a different path. Today, you're not just the groom. Today, you're the director of the final act. And when you utter that short, icy command, play it, you already know. What happens next, no one will ever forget. Hello, my friend. I'm so glad you stopped by my channel. If it's your first time here, don't forget to subscribe and like this video, as every like truly inspires me. Please tell me which city and country you watch this video from. Now, let's get started. I've often wondered what people truly mean when they talk about a gut feeling. It's one of those phrases that comes up in anecdotes. Someone senses something is wrong, feels a deep, almost primal certainty that something is off, but chooses to push it aside. Looking back now, I realize that my instincts had been quietly screaming at me for months before the wedding. The signs were all there, and my intuition had been waving red flags about the strange dynamic between my fiancée, Haley, and my best friend, Kevin. Their connection had started to veer into uncomfortable territory, a closeness that went just beyond the boundaries of friendship. But I was swamped. My job at a demanding software consultancy devoured most of my waking hours, and every spare moment went into planning the kind of grand wedding Haley had dreamed of since childhood. On top of that, I was constantly dealing with her domineering parents, Ronald and Melanie Carter, relentless in both their demands and their expectations. I'd catch odd moments, private jokes between Haley and Kevin, lingering glances he sent her way, and a flicker of unease would pass through me. But I was too exhausted to pursue it. I was barely holding things together, trying to balance 12-hour workdays with endless calls and decisions for the wedding. My parents, supportive as they were, didn't have the financial means or experience with high society events to be of much help. It all fell on me. And still, the red flags were piling up. Haley and Kevin were constantly texting, more than what seemed appropriate between a bride and her best man. I'd see them smiling at their screens, exchanging little jokes they never explained. When I'd ask what was so funny, I'd always get the same brush-offs. Just something silly, or inside joke, nothing major. Kevin and I had been inseparable since college. We shared a dorm room, pulled caffeine-fueled all-nighters, and supported each other through life's highs and lows. He wasn't just a friend, he was family. Maybe that's why I kept ignoring the nagging feeling. The idea of betrayal simply didn't compute. He was my best man. He was supposed to have my back, right? And then there was Haley. Her world was light years from mine. Her family carried their wealth like a title of nobility. Her father was a political heavyweight in our city, and her mother floated through elite galas with thinly veiled condescension. When I proposed, they didn't reject me outright, but the message was clear. I didn't quite measure up. Subtle comments, lingering looks, constant reminders that I was marrying up. Their name came with rules, with standards. It played out in every detail of the wedding. We'll split the costs evenly, they said, yet pushed for a luxury venue, extravagant floral arrangements, live classical musicians, and an invitation list that ballooned past 300. My dad, a retired teacher, and my mom, a nurse nearing retirement, had to dip into their savings just to cover our share. When I voiced concerns, Melanie would roll her eyes and say things like, "We can't have a tacky wedding, we're the Carter," or, "Do you really want your bride looking second-rate on the most important day of her life?" Haley rarely disagreed. She'd just smile and say, "It's once in a lifetime, right? Let them have their moment." Once. Right. About a week before the wedding, Kevin volunteered to handle the hotel bookings for our out-of-town guests. Confident and charismatic as ever, he showed me screenshots and booking confirmations. "You've got enough on your plate. Let me take care of this," he said. It was like a flashback to our college days, when I trusted him with everything. I felt thankful, relieved. The night before the wedding, both families gathered at the lavish venue for the rehearsal dinner. Haley wore a white dress that could have passed for the real thing. She glided from one of her relatives to the next, most of whom barely acknowledged me. My parents looked small and out of place amidst the wealth and glitter. Across the room, Kevin kept giving me encouraging smiles and thumbs-ups. Everything looked fine. Later, we moved to a more relaxed lounge area for drinks. Spirits were high until I noticed Haley was gone. I called her, but each call went to voicemail. One of the bridesmaids mentioned she'd stepped outside to decompress. I figured that made sense. It was an overwhelming night after all. Maybe she just needed some space. Then Kevin disappeared too. At first, I wasn't suspicious. Maybe he'd gone out for more wine or was checking in with someone. But a subtle unease started to rise. That quiet inner voice, the one I'd ignored for so long, was whispering again. 30 minutes ticked by, then 60. My concern turned to alarm. I pulled out my phone and scrolled through Instagram, hoping for a clue. Maybe one of them had posted something, anything, and that's when I found it. Haley had briefly uploaded an Instagram story, then deleted it moments later, but not before I caught it. It was only a few seconds long, a blurry shot of a hotel hallway, lined with a distinctive gold-patterned carpet and a partially visible room number. It definitely wasn't the hotel we were using for the wedding. It was somewhere else entirely. I felt my chest tighten. That same instinct I'd been pushing away all this time suddenly returned, full force and undeniable. I needed answers. I had to know for sure. My mind raced as I got into my car, heart pounding, a dozen explanations tumbling over one another. Maybe she was visiting a friend. Maybe Kevin was handling something last minute. Maybe I was overreacting. But what if I wasn't? Still wide awake and unwilling to let the feeling go, I couldn't shake the thought that Kevin had recently coordinated hotel bookings for some out-of-town guests. I didn't know the exact details, but it gave me somewhere to start. I parked the car and walked into one of the trendier boutique hotels nearby, banking on the possibility that someone at the front desk might recognize me, maybe from a previous visit, or through Kevin's group reservation. I didn't have much of a plan, just a vague hope. That's when I saw Kevin's car parked out front. If that wasn't a sign, I didn't know what was. I rode the elevator to the 8th floor. As I made my way down the hall, I scanned every door, my eyes searching for a number I'd seen in a fleeting Instagram story, 846847. My heart began to pound, each beat in rhythm with my footsteps along the eerily quiet corridor. Outside, the night pressed black against the windows. The hallway lighting was sharp and clinical, as though the universe had turned a spotlight on me. I didn't want drama, not yet. A gut instinct warned me, be smart, get proof, don't walk in blind. I leaned in and pressed my ear to the door of room 847. Nothing. Just silence at first. Heart hammering, I tried the handle. It turned. Only the electronic lock kept it shut. Ironically, Kevin had given me a master key card a few weeks back, calling it a just-in-case for any last-minute wedding mishaps with guest rooms. I pulled it from my pocket, slid it through the reader. A soft green light flickered. The door clicked open. They gave me the very tool that would expose them. I thought bitterly, stomach tightening. I stepped inside soundlessly. The room was dimly lit, shadows slipping across the walls. I heard soft voices, private, close. My blood began to seethe. On the king bed, Haley was sprawled out beside Kevin, her hair messy, skin glowing in the low light. She was lying sideways, and Kevin was above her, bent close. Their whispers were low, indistinct. But then she laughed, a quiet, familiar laugh, and that was enough. That sound broke the last piece of denial I'd been clinging to. Rage surged through me, and my hands curled into fists almost involuntarily. I wanted to storm in, drag Kevin off her, scream. But something colder, smarter, held me back. Not now. I needed undeniable proof. The wedding was hours away. I wanted them walking toward that altar thinking I knew nothing. I wanted the reveal to burn. Let them think they'd fooled me. My hands shook as I pulled out my phone and opened the camera. I zoomed in, thumb hovering over the record button. I wanted the truth documented exactly as I saw it. I hit record, just a few seconds, enough to capture the betrayal in high definition. Haley's face, Kevin's posture, the timestamp. They were completely unaware. I heard Kevin murmur something about never being caught. Haley responded with another laugh, quieter this time. The camera picked up every syllable. Perfect. I was shaking with fury, but didn't move. Didn't make a sound. There'd be no confrontation. Not yet. I repeated that to myself, like a chant. Once I had the footage, I backed away slowly, keeping them in frame as I moved. Their voices, their closeness, all of it recorded. Then I slipped out the door, just as quietly as I'd come in, and bolted down the hallway like I was carrying dynamite. Outside, the cold hit me hard, snapping me back to myself. My heart raced like I'd just finished a sprint. Anger surged through me in relentless waves, pushing me toward a scream or collapse. In my hand was the evidence, solid, unshakable proof of betrayal. I forced myself to breathe deeply, then climbed back into the car and drove without direction until I stumbled on a 24-hour diner. I slid into a ripped vinyl booth and pulled out my phone. The footage was damning. No room for misunderstanding. That's when the idea for revenge began to take shape. If they thought I'd be their fool and let it slide, they were wrong. Tomorrow wouldn't just be a wedding, it would be their reckoning. I didn't sleep a single second. By dawn, I downed 3 mugs of stale coffee, scribbled a chaotic collection of notes that would become my presentation, and rehearsed in my head exactly how I'd hijack the wedding's agenda. The venue's AV setup was state-of-the-art, meant for nostalgic slideshows and heartfelt montages. I already had files lined up, baby photos of Haley, awkward childhood pics of me, selfies of us grinning at beaches and brunch spots, but I could swap it all out in an instant. I knew the tech inside and out. A USB stick, my phone, either would work. I hesitated for only a second. What I had was intimate, deeply personal. But then I remembered. They chose to do this, the night before our wedding. That wasn't just betrayal, it was cruelty. And I had every right to respond. Actions have consequences. At 6:30 in the morning, I drove back to the apartment Haley and I had shared for nearly a year. I wasn't surprised she hadn't made it home. Maybe she figured she could outsmart me, sneak in right before daylight, slip quietly into the guest room like she'd simply lost track of time with her girlfriends, then play it off as just another harmless night out. But the moment I stepped inside, it was obvious. Nothing had moved. The living room remained untouched, the bed still perfectly made. I stood there in the place that once felt like refuge. Now it felt foreign, like stepping into a life I no longer recognized. Her phone charger lay untouched on the nightstand. The ring box I had given her still rested on the dresser like some kind of cruel relic. A cold pressure settled in my chest, followed by a rush of pure rage. She'd destroyed everything we built. For what? A fleeting thrill with the one person I never thought I had to question. I put my phone on silent and laid down, pretending sleep was possible, though I knew better. My thoughts circled endlessly, refusing to rest, until, finally, around 9, the door lock clicked. She was home. I stayed still, playing the part of someone asleep, waiting to see what she'd do. Her steps were slow, measured, too cautious. She didn't want to wake me. She didn't even peek into our bedroom. I heard the guest room door shut softly. She was probably in there now, trying to make herself presentable, hide the shame behind brushed hair and a splash of cold water. 30 minutes later, I wandered out, stretching and yawning like it was just another lazy morning. She sat perched at the kitchen counter, hair freshly done, dressed in a slouchy t-shirt and sweats. She managed a tired smile. "Morning, babe," she said, all casual ease. Crashed at a friend's place last night. Too much wine at the rehearsal dinner. You know how that goes. I mirrored her smile, calm and easy, even as my mind replayed every damning second from the night before. Sounds like it was a good time, I replied smoothly. Glad you made it back okay. I leaned in to kiss her cheek, a brief, empty gesture that masked the inferno underneath. She studied me for a second, quiet, searching. A flicker of relief crossed her face. She was trying to figure out what I knew. Maybe she sensed something. Maybe not. But I let her see what she needed to. Just a man still in love, none the wiser. I needed her to think she'd pulled it off. I just had to keep the mask on a little longer. The wedding was set for noon at the opulent Wentworth country estate. My parents showed up around 10, all smiles and excitement, blissfully unaware of the storm gathering beneath the surface. I greeted them with hugs that felt like placeholders. My mom looked stunning in a soft pastel gown. Dad gave me a solid pat on the back, probably thinking of how far his quiet son had come. I put on my best smile and told them I had a few last things to take care of before the ceremony. See you both soon. Meanwhile, Haley and her bridal party were tucked away in their suite, surrounded by clouds of hairspray and chatter. Kevin, of course, was with the other groomsmen. I had no plans to speak to him. Let him savor his last few moments of peace. I made my way directly to the AV booth that overlooked the ballroom. Inside, Trevor was fiddling with the soundboard. Here he is, the groom himself, he said to a colleague. Got some extras for us, yeah? Yeah, I nodded, pulling a flash drive from my jacket pocket. I smiled, calm and cool. It's not your average wedding montage. It's a little more powerful. Trevor chuckled. Whatever you say, man. Just give me the cue when you want it to roll. I tapped the drive lightly. Oh, you'll know. When I say roll it, that's your moment. Don't blink. A flicker of guilt tried to rise up, but I crushed it just as fast. This wasn't my doing. They lit the match. I was just letting the room see the fire. The ceremony was scheduled for noon, set in the estate's grand ballroom, a place straight out of a fairy tale, all sweeping arches, glittering chandeliers, and rows of seats arranged with surgical precision. By 11:50, the room was almost full. Guests murmured, laughed, posed for pictures. Haley's crowd filled their side with ease. Socialites, distant cousins, well-dressed nobodies. My side was smaller, quieter, real. Tradition said I should have been standing at the altar, next to the officiant, waiting for the music and the bride. But as the minute hand crept toward 12, I was nowhere to be found. The officiant, a family friend of Haley's father, fidgeted nervously. Haley's dad kept checking his watch. My mom wrung her hands, and Melanie Carter, in her polished lilac suit, leaned toward a guest and whispered with glee, "Where is Derek?" "He always this unreliable?" she muttered, never passing up a chance to take a jab. Somewhere backstage, Haley must have been panicking. I wasn't there to see it. I was upstairs behind the curtains, watching the murmurs ripple across the crowd. At 12:01, instead of music, silence took over. Uncertainty swept through the room like fog. Right on cue. I walked calmly back to the AV booth. Trevor was tense, waiting. "We're running a little late," he said. "Everything okay?" "Perfect," I said. My voice was tight but sure. My heart thundered, but the fury steadied my hands. It was time. I pressed the mic button. My voice echoed through the ballroom, cutting sharp through the silence. "Good afternoon, everyone." Every conversation stopped. Heads turned, eyes searched the room. They had no idea what was coming next, but when they looked to where I should have been, they found nothing. A ripple of unease passed over the gathering like a cold wind. Haley's father stood abruptly, eyes scanning the room with increasing alarm. Her mother clutched her chest, her mouth parted in silent confusion. "Is someone there?" the officiant asked hesitantly, his voice uncertain and tremulous. "Good evening, everyone." My voice boomed calmly through the speakers, though inside I was ice and fire. There's been a change of plans. In fact, there won't be a wedding today. The silence cracked like dry kindling catching flame. Murmurs erupted into shocked exclamations. Guests turned in their chairs, searching for the voice that had hijacked the ceremony. A few stood, eyes darting to the AV booth in disbelief. Somewhere backstage, Haley must have been unraveling. Trevor glanced back at me, stunned. I nodded once. He fumbled to plug in the USB, waiting for my cue. "Please, before anyone jumps to conclusions," I said into the mic, the words echoing crisply, "I'd like you all to watch something. Just a quick video. Trevor now." The looping slideshow of sweet memories, photos of me and Haley grinning at the beach, dancing at parties, celebrating birthdays, vanished from the projector. For a beat, the screen was pitch black. Then came the grainy footage, shaky, unpolished, unmistakably real, captured only hours earlier. Haley and Kevin, limbs entwined in tangled sheets, their voices unmistakable, intimate, oblivious. The date and time burned into the corner like a branding iron. I had edited it just enough to spotlight Kevin's face when he turned, still clueless I was even there. The camera zoomed in. The timestamp didn't lie. The wall clock behind them confirmed it. It was the night before the ceremony. Gasps shattered the stunned quiet. Then came a hush so deep it throbbed. Whispers rose like a tide, turning into a storm of horror and disbelief. Several guests remained frozen, hands over mouths. One of Haley's great aunts let out a strangled cry. "Merciful heavens!" Ronald Carter stumbled backward in shock. Melanie's face twisted like she'd bitten into something rotten. Kevin, probably still tucked away with the groomsmen, would be catching on right about now. A little late for redemption. Even from the AV booth, the growing cacophony of shouts and hurried footsteps was clear. The officiant stood motionless, staring at the screen like it might bite. Somewhere, a bridesmaid sobbed. From the sidelines, someone shouted desperately, "Turn it off!" I let the clip run for just 10 unbearable seconds, just long enough for the truth to pierce. The timestamp, the betrayal, Haley, my best friend. Then, with a tap, I ended it. The screen faded to black. The chaos didn't. Guests began rising, arguing, gasping. Trevor looked like someone had hit him with a brick. What was that?" he asked under his breath, eyes wide. I didn't reply. I just stepped away from the microphone. And then she appeared. Haley, dressed in white, like a ghostly echo of a day that no longer existed. Her face was pale as porcelain, horror etched into every line, her makeup flawless, her world shattered. "Turn it off!" she shrieked, voice breaking, laced with hysteria. She must have missed the actual footage, but the looks around her told her everything. Melanie elbowed her way through the crowd, fury burning in her eyes. "Who allowed this?" she demanded, spitting the words at the venue staff. Trevor shrank back, too stunned to respond. Ronald stormed down the aisle like a thundercloud. "Where is Derek?" he roared. "Where is that bastard?" He spun, searching, his fury palpable. Guests shifted aside, some trying to leave quietly, others frozen in place. My mother sat crying softly. My father's hand rested on her shoulder, his gaze fixed coldly on the Carter. A few of Haley's relatives melted into their chairs, wishing to be invisible. A woman near the front slumped forward. The man beside her frantically waved for help, shouting her name. It had become complete bedlam. Haley's eyes darted like a cornered animal's. Her gown's train swept behind her like a broken promise. Then her gaze landed on me. I stepped into view from the balcony, high above the crowd, letting the spotlight fall. Every head turned. A collective breath held. It was like the reveal at the end of a tragic play. "What are you doing?" she screamed, her voice fraying at the edges. "You're not even supposed to see me before the ceremony, you coward!" The irony nearly made me laugh. Of all the things to say, she clung to a superstition while the foundation of her life collapsed. "There is no ceremony," I said, voice cutting across the noise like a blade. "You took care of that last night." She stopped cold, tears brimming in her eyes. "Derek, please," she begged. "Not like this. Let's just talk. In private." "Why not here?" I snapped. "You had no problem sleeping with Kevin in secret. I think everyone deserves to know why they dressed up and wasted their time." Her mother pointed up at me, face burning with rage. "You've disgraced our family in front of everyone," she screeched. "You've ruined us." A dry, bitter laugh escaped my lips. "Ruined?" I echoed. "No, Melanie. Your daughter and Kevin did that. I just turned on the lights." Suddenly, there was a surge of movement at the front. Kevin stumbled in, tux half done, hair sticking up, eyes frantic. "Derek, wait!" he pleaded, desperation written all over his face. "Let me explain." He stepped toward the stage, and I launched myself down the stairs, cutting through the crowd straight toward him. Haley was already ahead of me, throwing herself into my path. Her oversized white dress billowed as she moved, but I pushed past her like she wasn't even there. Just the sight of her made my gut churn with rage. My fingers curled into fists so tight it felt like my bones might crack. Kevin started stammering. "You got it wrong, man. It wasn't like that. She was emotional. It wasn't planned." I couldn't listen. I didn't need excuses. That video was burned into my brain, captured on my own phone, the two of them, together, in bed. My anger surged like a tidal wave, unstoppable. Before I could think, my hand snapped forward. The slap echoed like a gunshot across the room. Kevin staggered, then crumpled to the floor, groaning as he hit the polished wood. The whole room gasped in unison. Haley screamed. "Stop it!" she shouted, falling to her knees beside him, the hem of her dress bunching on the floor. "You're hurting him!" Melanie's voice rang out, high-pitched and shaking. "What is wrong with you? Attacking him in front of everyone like a madman?" I pointed at Kevin as he tried to sit up. "He's the one who should be ashamed," I snapped. "He and your daughter orchestrated this whole lie, played me for a fool, behind my back, in front of all of you. Now everyone sees the truth." Silence swept over the room like a blanket. Haley looked up at me, her face streaked with tears. "Derek, please. I'm sorry. Just stop." I turned toward the sea of stunned guests, some already lifting their phones, recording the train wreck as it unfolded. "Thanks for coming," I said bitterly. "Really. But there won't be a wedding. No vows, no cake, just honesty." Without waiting for a reaction, I spun on my heel and shoved open the double doors. The bang reverberated through the hall like a judge's gavel. My parents followed, too shocked to speak. Behind me, Haley cried out my name, but I didn't look back. Back at the apartment, my heart was still pounding, the adrenaline coursing through me. My mother had come with me, quiet and trembling, her eyes red-rimmed. Once we were inside, she finally spoke, her voice barely audible. "Derek, are you sure? Is it all true?" I nodded and handed her my phone. The video was still there, untouched, time-stamped. She watched in silence. Her expression crumbled, and she pulled me into a tight hug. "Oh my God," she whispered. "I'm so sorry." Behind her, my dad stood solemn and pale. "You did what you had to," he said, placing a hand on my shoulder. Still, I could see the pain in his eyes. "We lost a lot on this wedding, but better that than letting you walk into a life built on lies." I thanked them quietly and told them to go get some rest. They nodded, reluctant but supportive, and their hugs said everything words couldn't. Even after they left, I couldn't shake the weight pressing down on me. The wedding had imploded in front of everyone. My parents had given so much, only to watch it go up in flames. But what else could I have done? Cancel it in silence and let the betrayal rot me from the inside? No. The truth had to come out. I needed the end to be real, I needed to be free. Alone, I started clearing out Haley's things. That night, I worked steadily, methodically. Her clothes from the closet, her endless collection of shoes, the dozens of makeup kits, all the little trinkets she'd insisted on decorating the place with. Each item went into a box. I labeled them in bold black ink, cold, impersonal. Around midnight, I rented a U-Haul online, loaded everything in, and drove it all to her parents' mansion. The house was still as obnoxiously grand as ever, looming behind its iron gates like a monument to vanity. The security guard at the front recognized me, eyeing the U-Haul. "Everything okay, Mr. Hale?" "Just dropping off Haley's things," I replied flatly. He nodded and let me through. I parked in front of the massive entryway. Tall stone columns towered above, and the heavy front door loomed like it was passing judgment. I still felt a lingering burn of anger, but mostly, I was calm. The damage was done. This was just the cleanup. I stacked the boxes neatly near the door, lifted the brass knocker, and let it crash once. Then I turned and walked back to the truck. As I pulled away, I caught the flicker of a light turning on inside, probably Ronald or Melanie, coming to see who had the nerve to show up this late. Let them deal with her things. Let her go back to her old room for all I cared. The next morning, loud banging jolted me awake. Groggy and dazed, I thought I was dreaming. Then I heard the voice, sharp and unmistakable. "Open the door. We know you're in there." I threw on a shirt and opened up. There they were, Haley, Ronald, and Melanie, standing on my doorstep like a storm front. Haley's eyes were bloodshot and puffy. Her hair was a mess. Ronald looked ready for battle in his perfect suit, his hands clenched. Melanie, as pristine as ever, held a sheaf of papers. "We need to talk about compensation," Ronald said icily. A laugh escaped me, dry, bitter. "Compensation? Are you serious?" Melanie shoved the stack into my hands. "For the catastrophe you caused yesterday," she snapped. "The expenses, the accommodations, the food, all the arrangements you destroyed with your little outburst." I flipped through the pages. Clean, itemized, ridiculous. Then I looked up, my voice firm, controlled. "You do realize your daughter slept with Kevin last night, right?" I'm certain they were the catalyst for everything unraveling. Haley's face twisted in rage. "You had no right to ambush me like that in front of everyone. If you were second-guessing things, you could have stepped back quietly." "I was well within my rights," I fired back, the anger bubbling up again. "You and Kevin embarrassed me first. I simply returned the favor. Actions have consequences. Don't play the victim now." Ronald's voice thundered. "We covered 50% of that wedding. And your side contributed the other half, sure, but the total went way beyond both your inputs," I countered. "What we spent blew past your combined contributions, and now you're demanding reimbursement? Let's say 15,000. That's a fraction of what was lost." My jaw dropped. "You seriously think I owe you 15 grand for a wedding your daughter torpedoed?" Melanie's lips curled in contempt. "That disgusting stunt with the projector? You disgraced us in front of people who matter, executives, donors, key players, people whose opinions shape futures. And you expect to walk away from that without facing consequences?" The nerve of it almost made me laugh. Let's be real. None of this would have happened if Haley hadn't decided to sleep with someone else the night before our wedding. Haley flinched like I'd physically struck her. "You're unbelievable. Maybe if you'd actually been present, if you'd cared about what I needed." A sharp laugh escaped me. "Oh, so it's my fault now?" "You know what? Just go, both of you. You're not getting a dime from me." Ronald stepped forward, trying to intimidate. "Do you even understand who you're going up against? You've said that before, but here's what you forget. I have the footage. Your daughter. Time-stamped. Crystal clear. If you want to escalate this, go right ahead. Let's see how your donor base enjoys the encore." The room went still. Ronald's face darkened, but he didn't press further. Haley's demeanor shifted. She moved closer, her eyes shimmering. Derek, please. We had something real once. Don't throw it all away over one mistake. One mistake? My voice cracked with disbelief. That wasn't a misstep. That was a decision. You got caught, on video. There's no coming back from that. Now get out of my life. Ronald's shoulders sagged. He realized he had no leverage left. They could posture all they wanted, but the truth was in my hands. Melanie scoffed and raised her chin. You'll regret this. I gave a shrug. Not nearly as much as I'd have regretted marrying into this disaster. They stormed off, slamming the door so hard the whole place shook. I leaned against it, drained. A heavy mix of relief and grief settled over me. No ceremony, no bride, no best friend. It wasn't the victory I'd once imagined, but it was still a win. Word spread fast, messages poured in, some supportive, others shocked, a few passed judgment. I stuck to the facts every time, how I discovered the truth, why I did what I did, what came next. Some called it brutal, some called it epic. I didn't care either way. Kevin texted me once, "Man, I'm sorry. I didn't mean for it to happen like that." I never replied. He got fired not long after, for falsifying hours or something. Poetic justice. My parents were heartbroken over the money, but quietly thankful I escaped something far worse. My dad told my mom, "Losing the money is nothing compared to losing Derek's self-worth." I swore I'd pay them back someday. The Carter tried to twist the story, painted me as overdramatic, said I acted out of jealousy. But the people who were there knew. Their image cracked and collapsed. Haley faded into the sidelines, drifting between social circles. Maybe she ended up with Kevin. Didn't make a difference. I moved into a smaller apartment, drowned myself in work, and started piecing myself back together. The ache didn't vanish right away, but the anger kept me going. Time moved on. The drama became background noise. Still, I kept that video file, just in case anyone ever questioned what really happened. This story has come to an end. What's your opinion? Share it in the comments, my friend. And if you like this story, check out other exciting videos on my channel. I'll say goodbye until the next video. See you.